Floating static routes are static route definitions programmed on your router to direct the same traffic to different destinations based upon a condition. The condition, such as a route destination suddenly becoming unreachable, will cause the router to try to reach that destination via its backup or floating static route. While this backup route is in place, it's only used when the primary route is unavailable. Floating static routes are static routes configured with an administrative distance value that is greater than that of the primary route or routes. And essentially, floating static routes do not appear in the routing table until another route to that same destination fails. In this diagram, we see the different administrative distance assigned to different routing protocols. Our IP route command includes an administrative distance of 130. From our chart in our diagram, we can see that the static routes have a default administrative distance of 1. And since we're using RIP as our routing protocol, we have a default administrative distance of 120. To create a static route that will float, that is, it waits for another route to fail before entering the routing table, we must manually set an administrative distance value that is greater than the primary route's administrative distance value. Administrative distance is the feature used by routers to select the best path when there are two or more different routes to the same destination from two different routing protocols. Administrative distance defines the reliability of the routing protocol. Each routing protocol is prioritized in order of most to least reliable using an administrative distance value. Administrative distance is the first criterion that a router uses to determine which routing protocol to use if two protocols provide route information for the same destination. Keep in mind that administrative distance has only local significance. It is not advertised in routing tables. And remember, the smaller the administrative distance value, the more reliable the protocol. So let's take a look at Tampa. Right now it's learning its primary route through a RIP broadcast. And we have configured this router with our other routers for dynamic routing configuration. And RIP tells us here that for me to get over to the 204.10.30.0 network, I'm going to go over to the 204.10.20.2 interface. But if that interface should go down, then I no longer have access to that 204.10.30 network. I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure me a floating static route that's going to allow me to get over to that network by way of another path. Alright? So let's go up inside of config. So we're up inside the global configuration mode. Now I'm just going to configure me the syntax. And I've already gone ahead and done that. And I'm going to use an IP route command to create the static route. Tell it what interface I want it to use. And since I don't want this to be used unless RIP is unavailable, I've given it a greater administrative distance. Since RIP is 120 and I've set this at 130, it won't be used unless RIP is no longer available. Let's go ahead and hit enter. So it went ahead and took it. And now if I get out of here and I'm going to do a show IP route command. And of course it's not going to appear into the routing table until I get a path unreachable because RIP is no longer available. So up to this point we've now got redundancy. I've got a primary path that I get from my RIP protocol, and then I have a floating static route that I can use in lieu of that primary path if I lose the RIP information on this router. So when configuring a network with multiple paths, we can configure multiple static routes, each with a different administrative distance, so as one primary route does go down, the next static route with the lower administrative distance will just take over. Now in our next series of videos on routing, we're going to be taking a look at RIP and IGRP and how to set them up and how to configure them.